She traveled 6 days across the country to marry a man she had never met. But when she stepped off that train in Wyoming, the cowboy looked her dead in the eyes and said words that stopped her heart. I did not write that letter. The entire town watched, waiting for her to crumble, waiting for her to run. But then, a small voice cut through the silence. An 8-year-old boy stepped forward and confessed. He had forged his father's name. He had brought her here because he was desperate to make his father smile again. And what the cowboy said next, it changed everything. My son chose you. That means something in this family. What happens next will break your heart and put it back together again. A story of secrets, danger, and a love that was never supposed to happen. Stay with me until the very end. I promise you will not regret it. This story reminds us that family is not always about blood. Sometimes it is about the strangers who choose to stay when everyone else expects them to leave. It is about broken people finding the courage to love again. And it is about the truth that the bravest thing we can ever do is stop running and start fighting for what matters. At its heart, this is a story about second chances. A woman running from her past, a man trapped in his grief, and a child brave enough to reach out for help when no one else would. It teaches us that healing begins when we let someone in. That love is not about perfection. It is about choosing each other day after day through the storms and the sunshine. This story reminds us that family is not always about blood. Sometimes it is about the strangers who choose to stay when everyone else expects them to leave. If this touched your heart, drop a comment and tell me where you are listening from. I want to see how far this story travels. 3 years ago, fire and blood changed everything for the Hart family. Sarah Hart fell backward onto the wooden floor of her bedroom, her eyes wide with surprise, her lips forming a name she would never finish saying. In the wardrobe across the room, 5-year-old Noah pressed both hands over his mouth, choking on silent sobs as he watched through the slats. A man laughed. The sound was high and cruel, and Noah would hear it in his nightmares for the next 3 years. A red bandana flashed in his vision, then boots walking away, then silence, then nothing but the sound of his own heartbeat and his mother's eyes open and empty, staring at nothing at all. Present day. The train screamed into Brewster Station, iron wheels grinding against the tracks. A woman stepped onto the platform, clutching a letter in her gloved hand and carrying everything she owned in a single carpet bag. She did not know she was about to walk into the lives of 2 people still trapped in that night 3 years ago. She did not know she would either save them or destroy them. She only knew she could not go back. Eliza Cole had been traveling for 6 days, 3 trains, 2 layovers, and more dust than she had seen in her entire 28 years in Boston. Her dress was wrinkled, her chestnut hair pinned but loose at the edges, and her hands trembled slightly as she stepped down from the passenger car. The August sun beat down on Brewster Station with the kind of heat that made men irritable and women retreat indoors. Wyoming territory stretched endlessly before her, so different from Boston's crowded streets. The sky seemed impossibly big, the land impossibly empty. Her fingers traced the letters she had memorized during the long journey west. I am not a romantic man, but I am a decent one. I have land, a home, and a son who needs steadiness. If you are a woman of character who seeks the same, I would be honored to meet you. It was signed Caleb Hart. The memory of Marcus Webb flashed through her mind, his cold blue eyes in her boarding house doorway back in Boston, his soft hands that had never worked an honest day, his voice smooth as poison. You can run, Eliza, but you cannot hide. You belong to me now. Your husband made sure of that. She touched the Derringer pistol hidden in her pocket. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. A woman alone needs to be her own protection. The train whistle screamed behind her. This was either her salvation or her grave. Either way, she was done running. Eliza stepped fully onto the platform and immediately became aware of every eye on her. She was wrinkled, travel-worn, obviously Eastern. She stood out completely among the weathered faces and practical clothing of the frontier town. She scanned the crowd for Caleb Hart. She saw him. He stood apart from the others, hat in hand, carved from the same stone as the mountains behind him. Tall, lean, a face that had forgotten how to smile. His shirt was clean but faded, his boots scuffed, and his eyes were the color of storm clouds. His eyes met hers, and Eliza felt something shift in her chest, something that felt dangerously like recognition. Then his expression changed. Confusion, then something colder. She approached, heart pounding against her ribs. "Mr. Hart? I am Eliza Cole. I believe we have been corresponding." She offered the letter. He did not take it. He did not move at all. The platform went silent. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Caleb Hart's voice was flat and hard when he finally spoke. "I did not write that letter, ma'am. I do not know who did, but it was not me." Eliza's stomach dropped. She felt the weight of every eye on her, felt the heat crawling up her neck. But she did not look away from him. She did not crumble. She stood perfectly still, chin raised, and said nothing at all. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wind through dry grass. A woman in an overdone dress stepped forward with poisoned sweetness. Her name was Clara Brennan, and her smirk was visible from 20 feet away. Oh my, how embarrassing. Perhaps the lady should return to wherever she came from. Before Caleb could respond, before Eliza could formulate words, a small voice cut through the tension. "I wrote it, Pa." A boy stepped out from behind Caleb's leg. He was small, maybe 7 or 8, with dark hair that would not stay flat, and his mother's blue eyes set in his father's serious face. He wore patched trousers and a shirt that had been mended more than once. The platform went so silent that Eliza could hear the wind moving through the dry grass beyond the tracks. Caleb Hart stared down at his son. His voice was barely controlled. "What?" "I wrote the letter." The boy's hands were clenched at his sides. "I found the matrimonial paper at the mercantile. I copied your name. I thought—" His voice cracked and he swallowed hard. "I thought maybe if someone came, you would stop being so sad." Eliza felt something crack open in her chest. She looked at this small boy who had done something desperate and brave and utterly foolish, and she understood him completely. Caleb crouched down, his face level with Noah's. His voice was low, controlled, but underneath it was something raw. "You forged my name. You invited a stranger here under false pretenses. Do you understand what you have done?" "Yes, sir." "Do you understand what this costs her?" Noah's eyes filled with tears, but he did not look away. "Yes, sir." Eliza looked at Noah. She saw herself at that age, desperate, brave, foolish, making choices out of love that the world would call mistakes. She made a decision. "You can send me back. I understand completely." Noah grabbed her hand. His small fingers were surprisingly strong. "Please do not go." Clara Brennan sputtered. "Caleb, you cannot possibly consider keeping this woman. It is not decent. It is not proper." Caleb stood slowly. He looked at Eliza for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. Not warmth, not welcome, but decision. "My son chose you." His voice was rough, like it hurt to speak. "That means something in this family." Clara's mouth fell open. The crowd murmured in shock. "She will stay at the ranch. We will figure out the rest." He picked up Eliza's carpet bag without asking permission and walked toward a wagon hitched near the station house. Noah tugged Eliza's hand, his face brightening for the first time. "Come on, Ma, before Pa changes his mind." "Ma!" The word hit Eliza square in the chest. She followed, feeling every judgmental eye on her back, knowing that she had just stepped into something far more complicated than a simple arrangement. Caleb Hart was not just a widower looking for help. He was a man at war with his own grief, and she had no idea if she had come to save him or burn alongside him. The wagon ride was 5 miles of uncomfortable silence. Noah sat between them, positioned there deliberately, chattering about horses and the ranch and anything that came into his young mind. Eliza asked appropriate questions, her voice calm and measured, despite the uncertainty churning in her stomach. Caleb answered in monosyllables. Is the ranch far? 5 miles? You run cattle? Some. Horses mostly. Noah says you have a dog named Brutus. He is Sarah's dog. The name fell between them like a stone dropped into still water. No one spoke for the rest of the ride. But something had happened to Caleb Hart in that moment. Something he did not want and could not control. The wind had shifted, and he had caught her scent. Lavender and something clean like soap and rain. Lavender. Sarah had worn lavender. His hands tightened on the reins until his knuckles went white. 3 years, and the smell of lavender still made his chest cavity feel hollow. Hart Ranch appeared as they crested a small rise. It sat in a valley where the land rolled in long, dry waves. The house was solid, 2 stories of weathered wood with a porch that sagged slightly on one end. Curtains hung in the windows, faded now, but someone had chosen them with care once. A woman's touch, slowly disappearing. The barn was larger, better maintained. Fences stretched in neat lines. Horses grazed in a corral near a water trough. It was beautiful. And it was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt like held breath. Eliza took it all in as Caleb pulled the wagon to a stop. Before anyone could move, a large dog came bounding from the porch. Gray muzzle, still strong, tail wagging despite his age. Noah scrambled down from the wagon. This is Brutus. He was Mama's, but he is mine now. Eliza climbed down and knelt, letting the dog sniff her hand. Brutus considered her for a long moment, then licked her palm. Noah's face lit up like the sun coming out from behind clouds. He likes you. He does not like most people anymore. Caleb was watching from the wagon, his expression unreadable. He finally climbed down and grabbed Eliza's carpet bag. I will show you inside. The tour was brief and terse. The kitchen featured a wood stove, a scarred table, and cast-iron pans hanging neatly on the wall. The sitting room held 2 chairs by a cold fireplace and no decorations. Everything was clean but sparse, a home stripped to essentials. He stopped at the stairs. Your room is upstairs, end of the hall. Mine and Noah's are at the other end. A deliberate distance. She noted it. Meals at 6, noon, and 6. You are not expected to cook, but you are welcome to. He paused at the back door and gestured to a rifle leaning in the corner. There is always a loaded rifle here. You know how to use one? My father taught me. For the first time, something shifted in Caleb's expression. Not warmth, but respect. Good. This is Wyoming. Everything out here wants to kill you. He left to tend the horses without another word. Noah showed Eliza her room. It was small but clean. A bed, a washstand, a window that looked out over the valley. The walls still had faded rectangles where pictures once hung. It was Mama's sewing room. Pa cleared it out last year. Eliza ran her fingers along the windowsill. Thank you, Noah. It is perfect. The boy hesitated in the doorway. Are you really going to stay? For a while. Yes. Noah nodded, satisfied, and disappeared down the stairs. Eliza sat on the edge of the bed and looked out the window at the endless sky. She had left Boston with nothing. She had come here expecting a new life, a partnership, maybe even a kind of peace. Instead, she had found a man made of stone and a boy made of hope. As the sun began to set, painting the valley in shades of orange and gold, she saw something that made her breath catch. A small fenced plot at the edge of the property. A single wooden cross, well maintained. And Caleb Hart walking there alone. He stood before the grave, hat in hand, head bowed. He did not move for a long time. Even from this distance, she could see his shoulders curved inward, the posture of a man carrying invisible weight. She could not hear him, but she could see his lips moving, talking to his dead wife, and she understood with sudden clarity. that Caleb Hart was not a cold man. He was a shattered one. That night, Eliza could not sleep. The bed was unfamiliar. The house was unfamiliar. Everything about this place was unfamiliar. She lay awake listening to the wind move through the grass outside her window and wondering what she had gotten herself into. Past midnight, she rose and walked to the hallway, thinking she might get some water from the kitchen. She was not alone. Caleb stood at the other end of the hall, having just checked on Noah. He wore no shirt, just trousers, and in the moonlight through the window, his scars were visible. Rope burns, wire cuts, one old bullet wound on his shoulder. He looked like a man who had been at war. They stared at each other across the darkness. Trouble sleeping? His voice was rough from disuse. Strange bed, strange house, strange man who did not want me here. I did not say I did not want you here. She tilted her head, studying him. You did not have to. A long moment stretched between them, something electric in the air, something neither of them was ready to name. Caleb turned away first. Get some sleep, Mrs. Cole. Tomorrow, we work. He walked toward his room. Behind him, Eliza spoke softly. It is Miss. I am a widow too, Mr. Hart. He did not turn around, but he did not sleep that night either. And for the first time in 3 years, when Caleb Hart finally closed his eyes near dawn, he dreamed of something other than blood. He dreamed of gray-green eyes and the scent of lavender. And when he woke, he was not sure if he was healing or just finding new ways to hurt. The next morning came too early and too bright. Eliza woke at dawn, dressed quickly, and came downstairs to find evidence that Caleb had been up for hours. Coffee made, dishes from his breakfast already washed, the back door standing open to let in the cool morning air. She found flour in the pantry and set to work. When Noah appeared, rubbing sleep from his eyes, the kitchen smelled of fresh biscuits and frying bacon. His face lit up with wonder. You cook? Pa just does bacon and eggs. Every day. Forever. Eliza smiled as she set a plate in front of him. Well, we will see about adding some variety. They talked while he ate. About horses, about books, about Philadelphia. Noah was starved for conversation, for a feminine presence, for someone who would listen to his endless questions and answer them with patience. Do you know any stories? He asked, mouth full of biscuit. A few. Adventure stories, cowboys and outlaws. Some of those too. Noah grinned. I like you. The simple declaration made something warm bloom in Eliza's chest. I like you too, Noah. When Caleb returned near midday, he found the kitchen transformed. Fresh bread cooling on the counter, soup simmering on the stove, and his son laughing at something Eliza had said. He stopped in the doorway, an expression crossing his face that was gone too quickly for Eliza to read. Then everything changed. Pa. Noah's voice went serious. Something is wrong with one of the calves. Caleb was already moving, and Eliza followed without being asked. In the barn, a young calf lay on its side, breathing hard. A deep gash ran along its flank where barbed wire had torn through hide and muscle. Blood soaked the straw beneath it. Caleb knelt, examining the wound with practiced hands. Wire got her. Deep. Going to need stitching. He reached for his supplies, preparing to handle it alone. I can help. He looked up at her, skepticism plain on his face. You ever stitched a wound before? More than once. My father ran a horse farm before he lost it. Accidents happened. Caleb studied her for a long moment, then nodded shortly. Fine. Hold her head. Keep her calm. Eliza knelt in the straw without hesitation. She spoke softly to the calf, stroking its neck, keeping it still while Caleb cleaned the wound. Then she held out her hand. Let me. He raised an eyebrow but handed her the needle and thread. Her fingers did not shake. She worked with the calm efficiency of someone who had seen blood before and had not run from it. Her stitches were neat, professional, better than many a frontier doctor could have managed. Caleb watched her hands. He had spent years reading people by their hands. Soft hands meant soft life. Calloused hands meant honest work. Nervous hands meant dishonesty. Eliza's hands were steady. His hands were capable. Sure. He had misjudged her. She was not some fragile Eastern flower. She was steel wrapped in silk. When they reached for the same strip of cloth to clean the wound, their hands brushed, skin against skin for half a second. It was nothing, an accident. But his hand burned where she had touched him, and from the slight hitch in her breathing, she had felt it too. The calf would live. They stepped out of the barn into the afternoon sun, and Caleb found himself looking at Eliza Cole with new eyes. "Where did you learn to do that?" "My father." Before the bank took his farm, she wiped her hands on her apron. "When you grow up around animals, you learn to fix what breaks." He nodded slowly. "That was good work. Thank you." It was the closest thing to a compliment he had given anyone in 3 years. That afternoon, everything almost went terribly wrong. Eliza had noticed the water bucket was low and decided to be useful. She walked to the creek about a quarter-mile from the house, following the path Noah had shown her earlier. The creek was beautiful. Clear water running over smooth stones, cottonwood trees providing shade, the sound of water like music after the silence of the house. She knelt to fill the bucket. The rattlesnake's warning came too late. The distinctive rattle froze her blood. The snake was coiled on a flat rock not 3 feet away, its head raised, its tail shaking. She could not run. Too close. Could not reach her derringer. Any movement might trigger a strike. She could only stay perfectly still and feel her heart trying to break through her ribs. Seconds felt like hours. The sound of hoofbeats. "Do not move." Caleb's voice was sharp, commanding. She heard him dismount, heard the click of a rifle being cocked. The crack of the shot made her flinch despite herself. The snake's head disappeared. Before she could react, Caleb was there, lifting her onto his saddle with hands that were rough and urgent. He swung up behind her, one arm locked around her middle, pulling her back against his chest. "Hold on." She could feel his heart pounding against her back. Or maybe that was hers. She could not tell anymore. He rode them back to the house at a gallop, his arm never loosening around her waist. When they reached the yard, he dismounted but kept hold of her arm. "Never go that far alone. Not yet." His voice was rough, but his hand was gentle where it gripped her. "There are things out here that will kill you before you know you're in danger. I understand. Do you?" He still had not let go. "Because I cannot." He stopped. Whatever he had meant to say, he swallowed it. "Just be careful." He released her and walked away, his shoulders tight with something that looked almost like fear. Eliza stood in the yard, her heart still racing, and realized that Caleb Hart was not as indifferent to her fate as he pretended to be. Late afternoon brought an unexpected visitor. A wagon rolled into the yard carrying a woman with silver-streaked hair in a practical bun, laugh lines around her eyes, and hands that had clearly known hard work. She was sturdy and comfortable in her own skin, and she smelled like fresh bread and coffee. Ruth McAllister owned the only restaurant in Brewster. She had also been a mail-order bride herself 30 years ago. "So you are the one causing all the fuss." She handed Eliza a still warm pie. "Apple, Caleb's favorite, though he will never admit it. I'm not sure I'm causing anything except trouble." "Honey, trouble is what men call it when women do not do what they expect." They sat on the porch together, and Ruth shared her story. How she had come west with nothing but hope and a letter. How the town had talked about her for a solid year. How they had called her names she would not repeat in polite company. "Now they come to my restaurant every Sunday after church and tell me I make the best pie in the territory." Ruth's eyes were wise. "Time changes things, but you have to survive long enough to see it. How did you do it?" "I did not try to win them over. I won him over first." The rest followed. Ruth glanced toward the barn where Caleb was working. "Do not try to change that man. Just give him reasons to change himself. Is he even capable of being won?" Ruth's expression softened. "That man has more heart than he wants anyone to know. Sarah's death broke something in him. But broken things can be mended. if you have got patience." She paused, then added quietly, "He used to be different. Before. He was a Texas Ranger, you know. One of the best. There is still a good man in there. He is just buried under 3 years of grief." The sun was setting when Ruth left. Eliza stood on the porch and watched the wagon disappear down the road, turning Ruth's words over in her mind. A Texas Ranger. That explained the way he moved, the scars, the rifle always within reach. She went inside to start supper and found herself humming while she worked. That night, Caleb walked past her room on his way to check on Noah. Her door was slightly open. Candlelight spilled into the hallway. She sat at the small vanity, pulling a brush through chestnut hair that caught the candlelight like fire. She was humming something. A hymn, maybe, low and soft. Sarah used to hum while she sewed. He should walk away. He knew he should. But he stood there watching until she looked up and caught his reflection in the mirror. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. The moment stretched into something that felt dangerous. Then Caleb turned and walked away. That night, for the first time in 3 years, he dreamed of something other than his wife's blood on wooden floors. He dreamed of gray-green eyes and the scent of lavender. And when he woke, he was not sure if he was healing or just finding new ways to hurt. A week passed at Hart Ranch. Then 2. Eliza fell into the rhythm of the place. She rose early, made breakfast, helped Noah with his letters and numbers during the morning hours. In the afternoons, she worked alongside Caleb when he allowed it, learning the endless tasks that kept a ranch running. She mended fences, she fed chickens. She learned to tell when a horse was favoring a leg and when the weather was about to turn. And slowly, so slowly she almost did not notice it happening, Caleb Hart began to thaw. He still spoke in short sentences. He still watched her with those storm cloud eyes that gave away nothing. But he stopped leaving the room when she entered. He started answering her questions with more than single words. Once, when she made a joke about a particularly stubborn rooster, she could have sworn she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. Then came the trip to town that changed everything. Caleb needed supplies that could not wait for the monthly delivery. Eliza asked to come along, wanting to see more of Brewster, and perhaps find some fabric to make new curtains for the kitchen. Noah stayed behind with Ruth, who had come to visit and was happy to keep the boy occupied with pie-making lessons. The wagon ride into town was quiet but not uncomfortable. Eliza found herself noticing things. The way Caleb's hands held the reins with easy confidence. The way his eyes constantly scanned the horizon for threats. The way the early gray at his temples caught the sunlight. She looked away when he glanced at her, but not quickly enough. Brewster was small but bustling. A main street with a mercantile, a bank, a church, a saloon, and Ruth's restaurant. People moved along the wooden sidewalks, calling greetings to each other, stopping to gossip in small clusters. Every one of them stared at Eliza as the wagon rolled past. The whispers followed her into the mercantile. She was examining a bolt of blue calico when Clara Brennan appeared like a bad smell. "Oh, the Hart charity case. Still here, I see." Eliza did not turn around immediately. She let the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable before responding. "Still breathing, Mrs. Brennan. I know how that disappoints you." Clara's face reddened with anger. Her mouth opened to deliver what was surely a devastating retort. Then Caleb was there. He appeared from nowhere, positioning himself beside Eliza, his body angled slightly between her and Clara. "Something you want to say to my wife, Clara?" The word hung in the air. Wife. He had never called her that before. Neither had she expected it. Clara's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Your wife? You heard me." Clara retreated, her dignity in tatters, muttering something about impropriety and standards as she fled the store. Eliza turned to Caleb, her heart pounding. "I am not your wife. You are under my roof, under my protection, close enough." His jaw was set, daring her to argue. She did not. Outside the mercantile, Caleb spotted an old friend. Sheriff Thomas Brennan stood on the sidewalk, badge polished but face tired. He had once been a Texas Ranger. had served with Caleb in the old days. Now he was married to Clara and looked like a man who had forgotten who he used to be. Caleb. Tom. She is not what I expected. She is none of your concern. Brennan looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with his mustache. Clara is stirring up trouble. You know how she gets. I know how you let her. Brennan winced, but took the hit. I know I have been. I know I am not the man I used to be. But I remember who I was, sometimes. Then maybe start acting like it. Brennan hesitated, then spoke so quietly Eliza could barely hear him from where she stood loading the wagon. If something happens, Caleb, if it ever comes to it, I will not stand by and watch you die. Caleb said nothing. He just walked away. But something had passed between the two men, something Eliza did not fully understand. At the post office, Eliza collected the ranch mail while Caleb finished loading supplies. Most of it was ordinary. A letter from a horse buyer, a notice about a church social, a bill from the feed store. Then she saw the envelope that made her blood freeze. Boston postmark, expensive paper, handwriting she knew too well. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Dearest Eliza, did you truly believe Wyoming was far enough? I have always admired your spirit, even when it is directed against me. But spirit can be broken, just like bodies, just like promises. Your husband owed me a debt. A wife inherits her husband's debts and his obligations. You have had your adventure. Now it is time to come home. I know where you are. I am coming for what is mine. Sincerely yours, Marcus Webb. Eliza's hands shook as she folded the letter. She should tell Caleb. She knew she should. But if she told him, he might send her away for bringing danger to his doorstep. Or worse, he might fight for her and get hurt. She tucked the letter into her pocket and said nothing. It was the wrong choice. She knew it even as she made it. But the pattern was old and deep. When danger came, Eliza Cole ran or hid. She was not ready to stand and fight. Not yet. That night, screaming tore through the house. Eliza was out of bed and running before she was fully awake. She reached Noah's room at the same moment as Caleb. The boy was thrashing in his bed, eyes open but unseeing, trapped in a nightmare. No, no, do not hurt her, Mama, Mama. Caleb gathered his son in his arms, his own face twisted with helpless anguish. I am here, Noah. I am here. It is Pa. But Noah kept struggling, kept crying, lost in terrors that had plagued him for 3 years. Eliza sat on the edge of the bed. Without thinking, she began to hum, soft and low, a lullaby her mother had sung to her when she was small. Slowly, Noah's breathing calmed. His eyes focused. He saw her. Ma? Eliza's heart cracked. I am here. You are safe. It was just a dream. Noah reached for her and she held him, rocking gently, humming until the trembling stopped. Over his head, her eyes met Caleb's. The gratitude there, and the pain. It made her want to weep. After Noah finally slept, they stood in the hallway together. He has not slept through the night since she died. Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. Not once in 3 years. He will again, someday. How do you know? Because broken things can heal, even when it feels impossible. She did not know if she was talking about Noah or herself, or him. The next afternoon, Eliza stood at the kitchen window with Webb's letter burning a hole in her pocket. Below, in the corral, Caleb was teaching Noah to rope a fence post. The boy swung his loop wildly, missing by feet, but he was laughing, and Caleb was smiling. It transformed him. The stone-carved hardness melted, and underneath was the man he must have been before, younger, lighter, capable of joy. Noah threw the rope again, and it actually landed on the post. He whooped with triumph. Caleb ruffled his hair and said something that made the boy laugh harder. The sunlight caught them both in gold. Eliza touched the letter through her pocket. Webb was coming, and she could not run. Not from this, not from them. But she did not know how to stay either. That night, after Noah was asleep and Caleb had retreated to his room, Eliza sat at the small desk by her window and wrote her own letter. Not to send, just to think. I came here running from one kind of death. I may have found another, but for the first time in 2 years I have also found something worth dying for. I just do not know if I am brave enough to fight for it. She burned the letter in her candle flame and watched the ashes float away on the night breeze. But the question remained, was she brave enough to stay? The morning came too early, and it came wrong. Eliza woke to strange light filtering through her window. The sky had an odd greenish tinge, and the air felt heavy with something she could not name. She dressed quickly and came downstairs to find Caleb already up, his face grim as he stared out the window. Blizzard coming, a bad one. In September? Wyoming does not care about calendars. The next hours were a blur of preparation. Boarding windows, securing animals, bringing in firewood, every task done with urgent efficiency. Then Ruth arrived in her wagon and Caleb made a decision. Noah is going to town with her. He will be safer there. Noah protested immediately. I want to stay with you and Ma. Caleb knelt to his son's level. I need you to protect Mrs. McAllister. Can you do that for me? The responsibility straightened Noah's spine. Yes, sir. The farewell was harder than Eliza expected. Noah hugged her fiercely, his small arms tight around her waist. Come back, both of you. We will. I promise. She watched Ruth's wagon disappear down the road and the sky darkened further. Then Caleb handed her a set of reins. We need to bring in the herd. Can you ride? She could ride. Her father had taught her before the bank took his horses. She had not sat a saddle in years, but some things you did not forget. They rode out together into the gathering storm. The wind rose as they worked. Cattle scattered across the range, spooked by the changing pressure. Eliza pushed them toward the sheltered draw where they would wait out the blizzard, her horse responding to commands she barely remembered giving. Caleb shouted something over the wind. You did not learn that in Boston. My father had a horse farm, before he lost it. Questions for later. Now there was only the storm. A pregnant heifer got stuck in a gully, too frightened to climb out. Eliza dismounted to help before Caleb could stop her. The heifer panicked. 800 pounds of terrified animal scrambled for footing, and Eliza was between it and the rocks. She saw death coming. Then Caleb was there. He grabbed her around the waist and hauled her backward, pressing her against his chest and the rock face as the heifer scrambled past. Hooves missed her by inches. For a moment, neither moved, her back against his chest, his arms locked around her, both breathing hard. That was stupid. His voice was a growl in her ear. She would have died. So would you. She turned her head, and their faces were inches apart. Snow was beginning to fall around them. Would that have mattered to you? He could not answer. Not honestly, not without saying things he was not ready to say. Get on my horse, now. They rode double through the blinding snow. His arm never loosened around her waist. Her back stayed pressed against his chest. They could not see more than 20 feet ahead. The main house was too far. There, Caleb pointed through the white. A small cabin materialized from the storm. The line shack, he called it. Emergency shelter for riders caught in bad weather. He got them inside just as the full fury of the blizzard hit. The cabin was maybe 12 feet square. One room, one bed. A small stove, a table, a chair. Emergency supplies on a shelf. Caleb got the fire started while Eliza found blankets. The cold retreated slowly, pushed back by the growing warmth from the stove. They ate cold rations and did not talk much. The storm howled outside. There was only one bed. I will take the floor. Caleb's voice was firm. Do not be ridiculous. You will freeze. I have had worse. And if you are sick tomorrow, who gets us home? Logic. He could not argue with logic. They lay down side by side, rigid as boards, careful not to touch. The blanket covered them both. The fire crackled. The wind screamed. Eliza did not remember falling asleep. She woke in the middle of the night to find everything changed. At some point in the darkness, they had shifted toward each other like flowers toward sun. Her head rested on his chest. Her hand lay flat over his heart. His arm was wrapped around her shoulders. She should move. She knew she should. But he was warm, and she fit against him like she had been made for this space. She did not move. And above her, Caleb Hart lay awake, staring at the ceiling, letting himself have this one moment. Just one. Morning came gray and cold, but the storm had lessened. Eliza woke in his arms. Their eyes met. Neither moved. "I am sorry." She started to pull away. "I did not mean to." "Do not apologize." His voice was rough, broken. "Caleb, I am trying to be honorable. I need you to know that. I know. You make it very hard." Something snapped. The careful distance they had maintained. The walls they had built. She reached up and touched his face. Her fingers traced the line of his jaw, rough with morning stubble. "What if I do not want you to be honorable, Eliza? We might die today. The storm might take us both." Her voice shook. "If this is my last morning, I do not want to spend it pretending I do not feel something." He did not decide to kiss her. His body simply moved, closing the space between them. His mouth finding hers with a desperation that surprised them both. She tasted like snow and longing, her fingers tangled in his hair. His hands framed her face like she was something precious he was afraid to break. It was not a gentle kiss. It was 3 years of grief and 2 weeks of denial and a lifetime of loneliness all crashing together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing ragged, she whispered, "Say something. I think." He spoke slowly. "I think I am done being dead." And then he told her everything. About Sarah. About the Dalton gang. About the night he was 100 miles away chasing outlaws while his wife died in their bedroom. About Noah hiding in the wardrobe. About the guilt that had eaten him alive for 3 years. "I was not there to protect her. I chose the badge over my family, and they made me pay for it." "That is not your fault." "Is it not?" "No." Eliza took his face in her hands, made him look at her. "You could not have known. You could not have stopped it. The men who killed her, they are the ones who carry that sin, not you." She held him while he did not cry, because he had forgotten how. She held him while the storm raged outside and the fire burned low, and the world shrank to just the two of them in this small cabin at the edge of everything. The storm broke near noon. They rode back to the main house in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not cold, not awkward, full, like a cup that had finally stopped being empty. Neither of them saw the tracks in the snow near the property line. Horse tracks, 4 sets, heading toward town. Noah returned from town like a small hurricane of joy. He threw himself at Eliza the moment Ruth's wagon stopped. "Ma, you are okay." The word did not feel strange anymore. Ruth watched them with knowing eyes. Storms bring out the truth in people. You two look like you found something in that cabin. Caleb did not deny it. Eliza blushed. For one brief moment, everything felt like it might be all right. Then Eliza went to town for supplies, and everything changed. The whispers were different this time. Not the usual gossip about her presence at the ranch. This was fear. She found Annie, Ruth's young helper at the restaurant, pale and nervous behind the counter. Strangers came in during the storm. The girl's voice shook. Rough men. Asking questions. Questions about what? About a woman from Boston. About the Hart ranch. Eliza's blood turned to ice. Webb's letter burned in her memory. He had found her. He was coming. She should have told Caleb weeks ago. She made herself walk calmly out of the restaurant, made herself cross the street toward the mercantile where their wagon was waiting. She almost made it. A man stepped into her path. He was handsome in a cruel way, with a lazy smile and eyes that made her skin crawl. A scar traced his left cheek. He wore a red bandana loose around his neck. Well, well, the Hart woman. His grin widened. Even prettier than I was told. I do not know you. You will. He leaned closer, and she could smell whiskey on his breath. We have got business with your husband. And with you. Man named Webb is paying good money for a reunion. I do not know anyone named Webb. The man laughed. Sure you do not. See you soon, Mrs. Hart. He tipped his hat and walked away. Eliza noticed 5 more men scattered around town watching. All of them had the look of men comfortable with violence. She drove the wagon home faster than was safe. That night she told Caleb everything, about Thomas, about the gambling debts, about Marcus Webb and his obsession, about the letter, about the man with the scar and the red bandana. She expected anger for hiding the truth for so long. She braced herself for rejection. Instead, Caleb's face went through several expressions. Surprise, anger, and then something she did not expect. Understanding. You should have told me immediately. I know. I was afraid you would send me away. Send you away? He stared at her. You thought I would send you away? To protect yourself. And Noah. Eliza. He crossed the room and took her face in his hands. I am not sending you anywhere. Not now. Not ever. Webb will come. He will bring men. Let him come. His eyes had changed. The softness from the cabin was still there, but underneath it was something else now. Something dangerous. I have been waiting 3 years for a reason to fight again. He just gave me one. A small voice came from the doorway. Pa? I need to tell you something. Noah stood there, pale as milk, his hands trembling. Caleb knelt. What is it, son? The man? The one Ma described. The one with the scar and the red bandana. Noah's voice cracked. I have seen him before. He was there. The night Mama died. The world stopped. He laughed, Pa. While she was... Tears streamed down Noah's face. He laughed. And I never forgot his face. I see it every night. Caleb went absolutely still. The man hunting Eliza was the man who had killed Sarah. 3 years of grief. 3 years of hunting ghosts. And now his enemy had walked directly into his life. Eliza pulled Noah into her arms, held him tight. The boy sobbed against her shoulder, finally releasing the secret he had carried alone for 3 years. Caleb stood frozen. Then he moved. He walked to the locked box on his dresser, the box he had not opened since Sarah's funeral. Inside lay a silver badge and a Ranger revolver. He took out the revolver, checked the chambers. The movements were automatic, muscle memory from another life. He is not laughing anymore. Caleb's voice was quiet, cold. I promise you that. That night, 3 people in the Hart household did not sleep. A boy, finally free of a secret that had weighed more than he could bear. A woman, watching the man she loved transform into something harder and more dangerous than she had imagined. And a man, cleaning his guns and remembering why he had been one of the most feared Rangers in Texas. The storm had passed, but the war was just beginning. 5 days. That was how long they had before Marcus Webb arrived on Saturday's train. Caleb spent the first morning in town, gathering intelligence. His old friend, Dr. William Mercer, had information that changed everything. One of those strangers got drunk last night, got in a fight, needed stitches. Doc Mercer cleaned his spectacles, a habit he had when delivering bad news. He talked plenty with a bottle in him. What did he say? They are waiting for someone from Boston. Man named Webb. Due Saturday. Caleb nodded. He had expected that. But Doc Mercer was not finished. There is more. I found papers in his coat while he was passed out. Webb has been funding the Dalton gang for years. Hired them for jobs back east and out here. Caleb went cold. Jobs? What kind of jobs? Did not say specifically. But one letter mentioned the Hart problem being resolved 3 years ago. The words hit like bullets. Webb had not just happened to hire the men who killed Sarah. He had ordered it. 3 years ago, Webb had been eliminating a business rival in Texas. A man who owed him money. A man who happened to neighbor Caleb's ranch. The Dalton gang was told to send a message. Sarah had been that message. Caleb's rage was incandescent, but cold, controlled. Does anyone else know this? Just you. What are you going to do? What I should have done 3 years ago. His next stop was the sheriff's office. Tom Brennan sat behind his desk, looking tired and old. He listened to Caleb's request for help, and his face twisted with conflict. I cannot start a fight with strangers on suspicion, Caleb. Clara would never... Clara. Always Clara. Caleb's voice was bitter. Where is the man who rode with me at Adobe Walls? The one who charged a Comanche line without blinking? Brennan flinched. He is gone, maybe. Or maybe he is just hiding. Caleb turned to leave. At the door, Brennan called out, Caleb, he turned. If it comes to shooting, if they come for your family. Brennan's voice was barely a whisper. I will not let them take another wife from you. It was not a promise, but it was not nothing either. Behind the mercantile, Eliza was loading the wagon when Sheriff Brennan appeared. He looked nervous, guilty. He glanced around to make sure no one was watching. Mrs. Hart. A moment. He pressed something into her hand. A small pistol. Do not tell my wife. Do not tell anyone. Sheriff. That man loves you. And that boy needs a mother. Whatever happens. He swallowed hard. Whatever I do or do not do publicly, know that I see what is right, even if I am too weak to act on it. He walked away before she could respond. The pistol was warm in her palm. That afternoon, Caleb taught Eliza to shoot properly. They stood behind the barn, a row of cans on the fence, rifle ready. He positioned himself behind her, adjusting her stance. His hands on her shoulders, her waist, her arms. Breathe in. Aim on the exhale. Squeeze. Do not pull. His breath was warm against her ear, his body solid against her back. She fired. The can flew backward. Again. She fired again, and again, and again. When the rifle was empty, he turned her to face him. If anything happens to me, do not. Listen to me. If anything happens, you take Noah and you run. Ruth will help you. There is money in the lockbox under our bed. Promise me. Our bed. He had said it without thinking. I am not leaving you. Eliza. I did not come this far to run again. Her voice was fierce. I am done running. Whatever happens, we face it together. He kissed her like it might be the last time. When they parted, his eyes were bright. My son chose well. Your son is 8. He chose based on my handwriting. He chose based on your heart. So did I. That night, Noah slept guarded by Brutus. The old dog seemed to sense the danger coming, staying closer than usual to the boy he had sworn to protect. Caleb and Eliza sat on the porch watching the stars. Do you think we will survive this? I do not know, but I know I would rather die fighting for something than live running from everything. She took his hand. Take me to bed. He looked at her, making sure she meant it. If this is our last night, then let us not waste it. They made love for the first time in the room that had been Sarah's. It was emotional, desperate, beautiful. Two people who had been alone for too long, finding each other at the edge of darkness. Afterward, wrapped in each other, Caleb whispered, "I love you, Eliza." Say it again. "I love you." Again. "I love you." She kissed him softly. "Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that. Remember this." They slept tangled together, hearts beating in sync. And just before dawn, the sound they had been dreading. Hoofbeats, many of them, coming up the valley road. Caleb was dressed and armed before Eliza finished opening her eyes. They are here. The war had begun. Dawn broke bloody and cold. 6 riders stopped at the property line. The Dalton gang. Hard men on hard horses, armed to the teeth. Behind them, a carriage. Marcus Webb, come to collect his prize. Caleb worked fast. Noah was sent to the root cellar with Brutus. Whatever you hear, you do not come out. You stay with Brutus. You stay quiet. Noah's face was pale but determined. I can fight. I know you can. But I need you to survive. For me. For Eliza. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Eliza positioned herself at the upstairs window, rifle ready. She had a clear view of the yard and the approaching riders. Caleb stood on the porch, Ranger revolver on his hip. It felt strange after 3 years, and also like coming home. He had not worn this gun since Sarah's funeral, had not wanted to touch the weapon that had failed to save her. But now it sat against his thigh like an old friend, and his hands remembered every lesson they had ever learned. Jesse Dalton rode forward, that cruel smile on his scarred face. Hart, we just want the woman. Send her out, and no one has to get hurt. Caleb's voice carried across the yard. You are on my land. You have got 60 seconds to leave before I consider this an invasion and act accordingly. Jesse laughed. Big talk from one man. Last time you faced a Hart alone, you needed 4 men in darkness. Killed a woman while her child hid in the closet. That the kind of courage you are bringing today, Dalton? Jesse's grin faded. You know who I am. I have known for years. I just could not find you. Thanks for saving me the trouble. Marcus Webb stepped forward from the carriage. He looked absurd in his expensive suit, soft hands clutching a gold-topped cane. Mr. Hart, this does not have to be difficult. Mrs. Cole, or Hart, or whatever she is calling herself now, owes me a considerable debt. I have simply come to collect. She is under my roof. That makes her debt my business, and I am not paying. Then you are choosing violence. Caleb smiled. It was colder than Wyoming winter. I chose violence 3 years ago when you killed my wife. You just did not know it yet. Webb's face went pale. He realized too late that Caleb knew everything. No more talking. Jesse went for his gun. He never got it clear. Caleb drew and fired twice before Jesse's hand touched metal. 2 gang members dropped from their horses, dead before they hit the ground. The world exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted from everywhere. Eliza fired from the window, hitting one man in the shoulder. Return fire shattered glass around her. She ducked, repositioned, kept shooting. Caleb moved like smoke, like death. He was not the rancher anymore. He was the ranger, the man who had tracked killers through 3 territories. The man who had faced down bandits and desperados and lived to bury them all. 3 years of grief had calcified into something else now. Purpose. 2 men flanked toward the barn with firebrands. They meant to burn him out. Caleb had to stop them. "Cover me!" he shouted to Eliza. He sprinted across the yard as she provided covering fire. The barn was already starting to burn when he crashed through the door. Smoke and flame and the screaming of horses. The first man came at him with a knife. Caleb broke his arm and threw him into a burning stall. The second had a shotgun. Caleb shot him before he could raise it. The horses were panicking. He freed them from their stalls, watched them bolt to safety. Pain bloomed in his side. A bullet had grazed him, bleeding freely. He did not stop. Inside the house, Eliza was alone. The shooting had died down. 3 attackers left. She was reloading when she heard the sound at the back door. Someone forcing it open. She spun, rifle up. Too late. Marcus Webb stood in the doorway, pistol in hand. "Did you really think you could escape me, Eliza?" He looked absurd. Expensive suit covered in dust. Face sweating with fear and excitement. "Put down the rifle." "No," he cocked his pistol. "I am not asking." She lowered the rifle. But she remembered Brennan's pistol, hidden in her apron pocket. Webb approached, gloating. "You always did have spirit. That is why I wanted you. Some women are too easy. You—" He reached for her face. "You needed to be broken first." Something froze in Eliza. The old pattern. Fear. Paralysis. The urge to run. She could not move, could not breathe, could not think. Then a voice from the cellar stairs. "Let her go." Noah stood there, small and pale and furious. Brutus at his side, growling. Webb turned toward the boy. The distraction Eliza needed. She snapped out of her paralysis, reached for Brennan's pistol. But before she could fire, Webb swung his gun toward Noah. Everything happened at once. Brutus lunged. 80 pounds of loyal fury hit Webb's arm, teeth sinking deep. Webb fired. The bullet hit Brutus. The dog fell, but he did not let go. Eliza fired Brennan's pistol, hit Webb's leg. He went down screaming. Caleb crashed through the front door, bleeding, wild-eyed. He saw Eliza on her feet, gun in her hand. He saw Webb writhing on the floor. He saw Noah unharmed, kneeling over his dying dog. And he saw Jesse Dalton behind him, gun raised, aiming at Caleb's back. A shot rang out, but not from Jesse. Sheriff Thomas Brennan stood in the doorway, his smoking rifle steady. "Been a long time since I shot a man." Brennan's voice was quiet. "Glad I still remember how." Jesse fell dead. Brennan looked at Caleb. "Told you. Not going to watch another Hart wife die." The remaining gang members fled. Webb was captured, wounded but alive. But the cost. Noah cradled Brutus in his arms. The old dog's breath was shallow, blood soaking the boy's shirt. "Pa." Noah's voice broke. "Pa, he saved me. He saved me like Mama told him to." Caleb knelt beside his son. Brutus licked Noah's hand once, weakly. Then he went still. He was a good boy. Caleb's voice cracked. "The best boy." Tears streamed down his face. The first tears he had shed in 3 years. Eliza wrapped her arms around them both. And for a long moment, the three of them just held each other in the wreckage of their home. They had won. But some victories cost more than defeats. The sun rose over the smoking remains of the barn. Dr. Mercer arrived within the hour. He treated Caleb's wound with steady hands and sharp words. Half an inch more, and it would have hit something important. "You are lucky. I do not feel lucky. You are alive. Your wife is alive. Your son is alive. That is all the luck anyone gets." Noah refused to leave Caleb's bedside. Eliza stayed too. The three of them huddled together, traumatized but intact. Ruth brought food. The town, which had whispered and judged for weeks, rallied quietly. Wagons arrived with supplies. Men offered to help rebuild the barn. Women brought casseroles and clean bandages. Even Clara Brennan came. She stood at the edge of the property for a long time, watching the others work, before she finally approached. "Mrs. Hart, Mrs. Brennan." Silence stretched between them. "I was wrong about you." The words seemed to cost her everything. "You fought for this family when it mattered. That counts for something." It was not an apology, not exactly, but it was a beginning. Webb survived. He was held in the county jail, under guard. Sheriff Brennan had sent for a territorial judge. The papers Dr. Mercer had found were damning. Conspiracy to commit murder, hiring known criminals, accessory to Sarah Hart's death, attempted kidnapping. Brennan read the charges from a growing list. He will hang, or he will rot in Wyoming Territorial Prison for the rest of his life. Caleb visited Webb's cell one time. The man lay on a cot, leg bandaged, face twisted with pain and hatred. "You took everything from me once." Caleb's voice was calm. "Wife, peace, 3 years of my son's childhood. Webb sneered despite his pain. She was nothing, just a message. Caleb's fists clenched. He wanted to kill this man with his bare hands. But he did not. She was everything. And you are going to spend whatever years you have left remembering that she was worth more than your entire miserable existence. He walked away without looking back. Webb stood trial in Laramie 1 month later. The evidence was overwhelming. He was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in Wyoming Territorial Prison. He died there 18 months later, alone, unmourned. They buried Brutus next to Sarah. Noah insisted. She loved him first. He should be with her. The three of them stood at the graveside. Noah spoke in a voice that cracked but did not break. He was a good boy. He waited for Mama every day for a year, and then he waited for me. He kept me safe. He kept Ma Eliza safe. His voice caught. I will miss him forever. Caleb put his hand on his son's shoulder. Eliza took Noah's hand, and for the first time, Noah really grieved. Not just for the dog, but for everything. For his mother. For the years of nightmares. For the fear he had carried alone for so long. He cried until he had no tears left, and when he was done, something in him had healed. A week later, as the sun set over the valley, Caleb found Eliza on the porch. We never did this properly. The marriage. We never actually married. No, we did not. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small gold ring. I bought this in town. Before everything. I have been carrying it for weeks, waiting for the right moment. He paused. Turns out, there is no right moment, just the moment you choose. He knelt awkwardly on his healing side and looked up at her. Eliza Cole. I am not a romantic man, but I am a decent one. I have land, a home, and a son who needs you. I need you. His voice broke. Will you marry me? Properly. In the church. In front of God and the whole damn town. Tears streamed down her face. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. Yes. The church was full. Every person in Brewster had come. Some out of curiosity, some out of genuine goodwill. Some, perhaps, hoping to witness something they could gossip about later. They would not be disappointed. Caleb Hart stood at the altar, more nervous than he had ever been in his life. Dr. Mercer stood beside him as witness, quietly teasing. The great Caleb Hart, feared by outlaws across 3 territories, brought low by a wedding. Shut up, William. Noah bounced on his heels, practically vibrating with excitement. He clutched the ring in his small fist like it was the most precious thing in the world. Sheriff Brennan stood at the back of the church in full uniform, on guard, just in case. The doors opened. Eliza appeared. She wore a simple dress, nothing fancy, but she was beautiful. Wildflowers in her chestnut hair, gray-green eyes bright with tears. She started down the aisle alone. She had no family here, no one to give her away. Halfway down, Noah stepped out from his place at the altar. He walked to meet her, serious and solemn, and offered his arm. I will walk you, Ma, if that is okay. Eliza's vision blurred. That is more than okay. She took his arm, and together they walked toward Caleb. Not a dry eye in the church. They reached the altar. Caleb was crying. The first time anyone had seen tears on his face since Sarah's funeral. Noah placed Eliza's hand in his father's. I picked her, Pa. You make sure you deserve her. Laughter rippled through the church. Laughter and tears. The Reverend began to speak. Who gives this woman in marriage? Silence fell. Eliza had no family, no one to speak for her. Then from the pews someone stood. Clara Brennan, I do. Shocked murmurs filled the church. Clara walked forward, her face set with determination. She took Eliza's free hand briefly. "I was wrong about you. This is my way of trying to make it right." She placed Eliza's hand more firmly in Caleb's. "Take care of her." She returned to her seat. Her husband stared at her like he had never seen her before. The vows were simple, personal, true. Caleb spoke first. "You came here a stranger. My son chose you before I had sense enough to see what he saw. But I see it now. Every day. I see your strength, your courage, your stubborn refusal to give up on me. On us. I am not a romantic man, but I will love you until the day I die and however long comes after. I choose you, today and every day after." Then, Eliza. "I came here running from my past. I found my future. I found a son who needed a mother, a man who needed to learn how to live again, a home that needed laughter. I stopped running when I found you, and I will never run again. I choose you, both of you, all of this, forever." The Reverend smiled. "Then, by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Caleb pulled her close. "Finally, my wife, for real this time." The kiss was sweet, promising, full of future. The church erupted in cheers. Noah squeezed between them, and the three of them stood wrapped in each other's arms. A family, complete at last. The reception at Ruth's restaurant lasted until the stars came out. There was dancing and laughter, and more food than anyone could eat. Sheriff Brennan formally apologized to Eliza. "I should have been braver sooner. You were brave when it mattered. That is what counts." When the night grew late, the Harts rode home together. Noah fell asleep between them in the wagon, his head on Eliza's shoulder. The stars spread across the sky like promises. "Thank you," Caleb spoke quietly. "For what?" "For answering that letter." She smiled, leaning against him. "Thank you for letting me stay." The wagon rolled on through the darkness, carrying a family toward home. In his sleep, Noah murmured something. It sounded like Mama. Eliza kissed the top of his head. And for the first time since he was 5 years old, the word meant warmth instead of grief. Spring came to Hart Ranch in a riot of wildflowers. The new barn stood larger and stronger than the one before. The fences were mended. The horses were healthy. Everything was as it should be. Eliza stood on the porch, one hand on her swollen belly, watching Noah teach the younger children their letters. She had started a small school at the ranch, 5 students from neighboring farms. Noah was her star pupil and teaching assistant. "No, that is a B, not a D. See, B has bumps in the front. Bumps, bumps, like a belly. B for belly. D is different." Caleb appeared in the doorway, watching his wife and son with an expression that had become familiar over the past year. Wonder, gratitude, joy. "How are my students?" he asked. "Brilliant, every one of them." Eliza smiled. "How is the south pasture?" "Fence is mended, calves are healthy." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, hands resting on her belly. "How is the newest Hart?" "Active, kicking up a storm." He or she will fit right in then. That evening, after the students had gone home and Noah was doing his own schoolwork, Eliza walked to Sarah's grave. She had started coming here alone. Not often, but sometimes. She knelt and placed lavender on the grave. "I do not know if you can hear me. I do not know if you are watching somewhere. But I needed to say something. Thank you for loving them first. Thank you for giving them to me to find. Thank you for Noah, for his bravery, his heart, his eyes that look like yours. I promise I will take care of them. Both of them. I will never try to replace you, but I hope I can make them happy, the way you did." The wind stirred the lavender, carrying its scent up into the evening air. And Eliza felt something. Maybe imagination. Maybe something more, like a hand on her shoulder. like acceptance. Caleb found her there. I thought I would find you here. Do you mind? She would like you, Eliza. He stood beside her, looking at the grave. She would be grateful. I am the grateful one. They stood together in silence as the sun set. Later, inside, Eliza found Noah's original letter pressed in a book. She read it again. Dear lady, who might become my new ma, my pa is sad, and I do not know how to fix him. He works all day and does not smile. I think he needs someone to love. I promise to be good if you come. Please help us. Noah Hart. Tears fell on the paper. Caleb appeared behind her. That letter brought you to us. No. She leaned back against him. That letter brought me home. From downstairs, Noah's voice. Ma, Pa, I tried to make dinner and something is burning. Smoke wafted up the stairs. Caleb ran. Eliza stood at the window for one more moment, the letter pressed to her heart. Later, after the burnt dinner had been scraped into the yard and cold biscuits had been eaten instead, after Noah had been tucked into bed with promises that his next cooking attempt would be supervised, Caleb and Eliza sat on the porch. Her hand rested on her growing belly. His hand covered hers. The stars spread across the sky like promises. And the letter, the one that had started it all, lay safely in a box beside Sarah's ring and Caleb's old badge. 3 relics of the past, one family's future. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.